G'day everyone, and welcome to lesson 2.7 of cartooning in media with myself. Whoops, I'll just get a few things out of the way there. Today we're looking at lettering and spacing. What I mean by that is making sure you have enough space for your lettering, for your dialogue, how you want it to look, and the spacing part is how do you want your frames to look? Where do you put your main character? Where do you put the background? Where do you put, things in the background that tells the viewer or the reader where your character is and what's going on, but also doesn't take up too much of your reader's attention. This is because, like all good storytelling, the main focus for your frames or your pictures should be your character, and everything else is there to help tell his, her, or its story. So the first thing I want to tackle is lettering and how much space or what measurements do you use to work out how tall or how short your letters need to be. Now, something I need to mention before we continue, everyone, is that this session here, we're actually going to go in two parts. So this is part one of what we are looking at. And today I'm also going to give you two tasks as well. For this session, you're going to need a good ruler. So something that shows you millimeters and centimeters is really good. And perhaps even something like a right angle that you can use. This is going to be really essential for doing your lettering. Okay, on to the dilemma that I have at the moment. So these are some of the originals of my work of Gone Bush Series 2. And as you see, one thing that I have to work really hard at is my lettering, making sure that my letters are all neat, that they're all consistent, and they're all straight. And so sometimes I'll think that I've done a good job, and I rule the lines and try and make sure that it's all accurate. But as you can see here, I've gone a little bit below the line for some of hospitality, food preparation. It's not quite as accurate as what I would like, but it's still a very good cartoon. The joke is really good too. So it's okay. Maybe at some stage I might redraw it, but at the present point I'm going to continue doing the other drawings that I've got in my head. But at the same time, it's important to take a look back at your own work that you've done. Look at, well, what worked, what didn't. And while I'm happy with things like a lot of my techniques here for these comics, the lettering, I know that's my weakness. I need to keep on improving on my lettering. So initially with my lettering, I would pretty much make it about 5 mils or 5 or 6 mils from top to bottom. So if you take a look at this letter F here, if you can just see it, that's about 5 mils. So this is a 5 mil thickness. And so I was quite happy with that. I think with this one here, there is a lot of dialogue here. I mean, that's the whole joke. It's a bit of the joke is it's a real long-winded explanation for what's going on, and it becomes apparent that the problem is the long-winded explanation. So it's a bit of irony there. However, there's a lot to go through. Hey, I might even redraw this at some point too, but I'll keep it as is at this point in time. I made the lettering here. Looks like I made it even 4 mils. So 4 mils from top to bottom so I could fit everything in. So while that fit everything in, it made everything for dialogue-wise look pretty congested and a pretty hard read. Or harder to read, I should say. However, one thing I do like about my lettering is by writing in capitals, it is actually easier for you as the reader to read this through quickly. In fact, with a lot of comics, people don't really take into account that they're reading the words in capitals. It just reads very quickly. And also the good thing about using capitals is that all of your letter shapes are very uniform. They're all very much the same height from top to bottom. Unlike, for example, trying to write in a mixture where you've got your capitals and you've got your lowercase there too. So you've got letters that hang down like your J's and P's. You've got letters that go up a bit like your your T's and your H's. F's will go up and down as well for the small ones. So it's a little bit harder to get something uniform. Now what I was doing here, my letters were getting a lot bigger. So if we take a look here, this is about 8 mils from where the bottom of this word here, bird, to the top of that B there. I do apologise if this seems a bit too much of a ramble or technical, but this is where the maths comes into what you're trying to do. And when you're trying to present something, it's really important that it is easy to read, that it is easy to pick up, and your spacing has to be right. So, as I was saying, it's about 8 mils from here to here. It's about 8 mils from the top of the G to the bottom of the lowercase g here. And as you can see, your letters start bumping into each other. I wanted to use a lowercase here because this character here, he sits under a tree, he writes poetry. And so while he's writing his poetry, I thought to make it look like it's a bit different as opposed to something that one of the characters might say, I thought to have some significance, I want it to be in lowercase. So it looks like he's actually writing it. So with that in mind, this will take up a lot of room. So let's take a look at some other lowercase writing I've got. So this was one for what is going to be the first comic in the series. So I wanted to have this poem written by Ted Wombat, who's the philosopher and the poet of the Gone Bush series, and just to talk about what Gone Bush is going to be about. And so this poem sets the scene. However, it does take up a lot of room because I've used lowercase. So, but measuring it though, it's smaller than what I had for the last one. This is about just on 7 mils from top to bottom of the capital I there. So with this in mind, I'm going to go back to one of these ones we were looking at just before. Here, from top to bottom, the letters actually started becoming about 6 mils high. Let's measure this L. Yeah, it was about 6. No. Looks like it's nearly 7 mils from top to bottom there. And I think the same here for this capital T. Yeah, he's about 7 mils as well. So I had a dilemma. My letters were getting slowly bigger. What's the proper size to have? Should I make it 4 mils, which seemed really small, 6 mils, maybe 5 mils high? So that's when I started looking at what other cartoonists are doing and tried to do the maths on that one. So I'm going to make a long story very short. I decided on 5 mils. Let me show you a couple of things though. Okay, what I want to show you is actually what I want you to do for your first task. Excuse me, I'll just get that in focus. Great, okay, now it's in focus. So your first task, everyone, is I want you to rule some lines. Now, this is why you have a sketchbook like this. You use it to experiment with, you put your ideas in it. I always use my sketchbooks as a bit of a diary so I can record my ideas and how I'm going. Now, you're going to need something that's going to give you a right angle, so a little set square or a big one would be fine. And let's rule that along there. Now, along here, I'm going to do a few lines. So I'm going to put one about 4, make a mark of about 4 mils. And put another line there. So I'm going to make a mark of 4 mils and leave a gap of 2. Like so. And have another 4 mil and then a gap of 2. So, because we're trying to get a gap between our letters, okay, between our lettering, you will need to do the same as well. So I'm starting off with 4 mils. Let me write that. 4 mils. Then you need another gap of 5 millimeters and another gap of 6 millimeters, or however big you think you need to go for your lettering. And then from there, rule some horizontal lines across. I'm going to do a time lapse so that you can, to speed things up so you can see how I do this. Okay, that's my lettering done. Let's just zoom in a little bit so you can see what I'm doing here. Okay, we're all in focus. Fantastic. Okay, so from here, maybe I'll just move that to the middle. Sorry about that. And we'll zoom in just a little bit more. All right. So this is 4 mils. These two lines here are 4 mils. These two spaces here are 5 mils, 5 millimeters. And there's the gap here is always 2 millimeters, okay? And these two gaps here, these two spaces here, are 6 millimeters. Now, you might want to make it a little bit more. You might want to experiment with 7, 8, and 9. That's up to you. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start writing. Now, it doesn't matter what you write. You can write any old thing at all, but practice your lettering. Practice how you write things. Make sure your lines are straight as you can make them. A sentence we were always taught in primary schools: the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. And because when you do that, you actually, in that sentence, write every letter of the alphabet. So I'm going to keep on going to try 4 mils, 5 mils and 6 mils to see how it all looks, and to see which I find is easier to write. So at 4 mils, it could be quite a squash. 5 mils could be okay, that's what I'm suspecting. 6 mils could be good, but I know that 7 and 8 mils is too big for what I'm trying to do. So let's make a start. I'll put this on time lapse again, and you can watch what I do. Okay, there we are, all complete. Now let's just zoom in again. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Aha, very good. That's looking really good. So I might zoom in just a tad more. Oh, hopefully that's not too big. Right, so what we're looking at here is we've got my writing for 4 mils, 5 mils and 6 mils. Okay, now I can tell you that the 6 mils, at 6 millimeters from top to bottom there, I found that just a little bit harder to write. And at 5 mils, I could write that quite comfortably. 4 mils I could do, but I still have worries about that being congested. So I'm going to decide at some point, do I want to stick with 4 millimeters or 5 millimeters? If I do the 4 millimeters, I could probably just fit in a little bit more into my comic strips as well. So like I said, this is a bit of a technical thing, but this is the maths we use when we're trying to create a comic strip and get a message across to our readers. Sorry, this is your first task, everyone. I want you to have a go at lettering and what kind of spacing do you need. Now, I'm just going to rub out these lines here so you can actually have a better look at it as well. Just a second. Okay, that's a bit better. Let's zoom in again. Right. Yep, that looks much better. So that gives you a better idea of how your letters look. So once you've done your lines, once you've done your lettering, writing, whatever you like, that's fine. Rub out your pencil lines, see how it looks, and make a decision yourself. How big do you want your lettering to be? And hey, you are the artist. This is your comic, so you have it the way you wish it to be. Now, on to the next task. On the lead up to task 2, I want to show you this. This is just a scrapbook which I use, and in this I just draw a lot of my ideas, or write a lot of my ideas, which I use for my cartoons. Now sometimes I might write something like a poem or something like that, and sometimes it's quite good. Sometimes I write it and I think, no, actually that's not really that good, so I cross it out. I might do a bit of designs for characters and things like this here when I'm just trying to get a joke across. Here we've got the sketches, the initial sketches I was doing for that comic I was doing last week about the fleas, knees, bar and grill. So here I just had what I thought the dogs would look like. I had a bit of the dialogue there, how it would work out. And so this is your real rough draft kind of material here where you have a go at things. Not everything works out. Whoops, I'll just find a new page. And sometimes I get an idea and I just write it down. I saw a book author do this once when she was interviewed. It was a lady called Emily Rodder who wrote the Del Toro Quest and a few other things. And to hear her interviewed, it was really interesting because she said that whenever she got an idea, she just wrote it down on a piece of paper, she put it in a folder, and then she'd come back to that later. When she had enough ideas around a certain story or a certain character, she'd think, oh, I think I've got enough here to work on to turn this into my next book. So this is something very similar that I do. Whenever I get an idea, I write it down. Maybe I might do a couple of little sketches there, just not brilliant, but just a few rough lines there, just so that I get the idea of what it was that I was trying to achieve here. So let's move on. So what I wanted to show you for today, there's a couple of jokes that I really wanted to do. Oh, now, whenever I've done one, I don't know if you can see this, but over here, this is another one I've done about two worms talking about a stressful job. So I've ticked those ones off. There was one comic up here which I really wanted to rework. And so I'll show you the comic in just a moment. Just a second. Okay, this is the comic. Now, my initial idea was here. I've written it here. Now, the joke is you've got the local native animals that are playing football. So we've got a newcomer who's come in to find out about playing football. So he's not from this area. And so the koala's saying, oh, new to the game, eh? Well, right now we're waiting for the umpy to have a bounce, whatever that is. We're not doing well because we've kicked too many behinds. That sounds dangerous. I've kicked a bag of them myself. That sounds pretty interesting. So the joke is good because, as you can see, the joke is, well, we have so many different terms in football that, you know, if you have someone who's not familiar with the game or someone who's new to the country coming along, trying to find out about what it is that we do when we play footy, well, there'd be so many weird terms that they'd think, oh, hang on, that just doesn't sound right at all. It's a bit of an old joke, but it's a good one as well. Now, having a look at that, I thought, okay, I've made this a one framer. I wonder if I can make that a bit bigger so you can see it. Possibly not. No, that's okay. So I've made this a one framer, but to me, having a look at it, I know I could do better. The koala's great. The sheep, I think it's all right. I don't know if I should have a sheep or a pig or a goat or something like that. I'll make a decision on that soon. And the footy oval's obvious as well, but there's just not enough action. So really, you should have some people flying around here or jumping up and down trying to catch a ball. So really, the only two people on the field are these guys. And you've got some goalposts, that's pretty obvious. You've got the scoreboard there. You've got the local team, Gerborough, 22 points to the visitors who have got 33. Okay, so they're not doing too well, are they? Maybe they'll catch up. But that's about it. So there's not enough actually happening in here. So to me, I was looking at it, I think the joke's great, the characters are good, especially the koala, but there's not much happening here. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board on this one and redesign it. And that's what I want you to do too. I want you to come up with some kind of joke. It might be something that you've seen before, and we're just going to learn today how to plan something out. Let me show you. So this is what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do my rough. Now this is the rough draft. This is like everyone, when you're writing a story, you start off with a draft, you start off with your rough. And even before that, when you're writing a story at school, you actually, or you should, start off with your plan. And your plan is not your story. Your plan is just your plan. This is how you map your ideas out. And that's what I'm doing here. So I've got my comic strip here. I actually want to turn it into about 2, maybe even 3 frames. So looking at this again, I know what I need to rework. We talked about lettering and dialogue before. Well, that's going to be really important here because I think what I've got here is too many words. I need to rework what I've got. Maybe I can say things a little bit better without saying as much. And that is a real skill. Okay. It's always a temptation to write too much. It's always a temptation to say too much in some cases. For me, it is. So this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to do a rough. I'm going to time lapse again so that you can see what I do. Okay, well, it's not very exciting, I know, but this is the plan. I would actually call this draft 1, really, because I'm probably going to have to go back into it and work it again just to try and space out the ideas more. But this is what I do like. I like that I've got in the first panel these silhouetted characters up the back there. So you can imagine a couple of koalas and a wombat. You've got the goalposts up there, so someone's taken the mark. You've got a couple of other players running in there. It's not really defined who's on which team, and that's okay. You've got a game in progress there. Perhaps these characters could move along a little bit, and I could actually have that panel finishing there to give this a bit more space. So I'm still working out, who do I want this animal to be? Do I want it to be a pig or a goat or a panda or a tiger? Or maybe there's another animal I just haven't thought of. I want it to be an animal that's not a native Australian animal, or an animal we'd associate with Australia, such as a sheepdog or a sheep, or, you know, we did have a sheep before, so you know what I mean. We want to have something that's going to be different from the koalas and wombats. So that's still in, pardon me, that's still being decided at this stage. So I'll need to work that out before I start doing the final copy. Here I've got the two characters silhouetted. So this is what I've been talking about before in the last few weeks. I want to save space, so I'm drawing these two guys smaller, silhouetted, just to keep the story flowing, and so leave more room for dialogue up here. Over here I have a lot of dialogue. I might even move some of that a bit more, because these guys are almost getting drowned in their words. But this is why you have to write things like this out, and that way you know. It just gives you a bit of a visual of how the final copy could look. So, like I said, the joke's good, the concept is good. It's more in how I go about telling it. So, I might need to move a few things. Like I said, I might need to move these guys over, make this panel just a little bit bigger, or move that panel to about there. Maybe make this panel a little bit bigger, and have more room for dialogue. Well, that's all I've got for you guys today. Your task, Year 8s, is I want you to create your own plan. And so this is your second task. So you might think of a joke you already know, or maybe you've got a new one. Work out how you're going to execute it, how you're going to have your characters positioned, where are they going to stand or sit or whatever in relation to where you're going to put your words and where you're going to put your dialogue. Oh, there's one more thing there. I actually tried to shorten the dialogue compared to this and omitted a few words. But it's hard because sometimes you actually need a few words just to get the joke going along. And if you actually take words out, that you run the risk of people not getting it here. So that I said, have our team kicked too many behinds? I omitted this line here. We're not doing well because we have kicked too many behinds. So I might actually put that back in. Okay, that's all for me for this week. Have a good week, everyone. I'm really appreciating seeing your posts up on Google Classroom. Thanks very much for everyone who's been posting those up. That's terrific. Lets me know how you're going. Okay, see you later. Have a great week.